Okay, today is Sunday, and it's February 24th, 2008. And we're going to ask Mom a few questions. So Sherry and Alex and Brittany are here. So if anyone has questions, kids, now's the time to ask. So, Mom, tell us where you were born.
I was born at Rest City at Agnes Olson's, and Dad took me in and took Mother in and left me there because there was no hospital then, and Agnes Olson helped with the birth of babies for a lot of people.
So it was in
I
town?
was born at her house in Rest City in town. Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Yeah, so, and then Dad come down, and the roads were so bad, they weren't tarred or anything, you know, or sanded or gravelled or anything, and so it was just mud, just dirt, and so they almost got stuck coming in there because it was such big ruts in the road that it was hard for him to drive even.
So how long did you have to stay there then?
Oh, I think Mother stayed for about a week or week and a half, and went home.
And you weighed about, what, 6 pounds? 7?
6 pounds, 2 ounces.
And how many other children were there at that time?
Well, there was 2 older boys. Dale was 5 and Kenny was 2. And then I was born, and then there was 4 other boys after me. So there was...
So where did you live at the time?
Where
Where did you live?
We lived all over. We lived east of Rock Creek. And before I was born, and we lived at Rock Creek, and the house burnt there. And Mother had made a lemon pie, and after the house, you know, was burnt and everything was over, why Dale, he just couldn't get over, you know, that the lemon pie burnt that he was going to have for lunch. He was about 5, so he was more concerned about that. But anyway, then we moved to another farm.
Did they lose everything?
Well, just about. There's smoke damage and everything, you know, but we burnt wood, and of course the wood, you know, stove, Dad put so much wood in them, they were just red. So it was always a hot stove. And then we had a cook stove, of course, that's all you had to cook on. And so Mother had that to cook on.
Huh.
But, so then C.O. Gluth, who lives at Red City, Agnes' daughter at that time, now she's 97, and she was there helping with Mother at the time. So she remembers that well yet at 97.
The fire.
And that.
Were you home at the time?
And Dale.
Oh, and Dale and the lemon pie.
Yeah, with the lemon pie. So she always tells that to Dale.
So then you moved.
So then, oh gosh, we moved all over. We had some of the houses we lived south of Rock Creek a mile, and went to Meadowbank School, and then we lived where Chucky and Elaine had lived, or Chucky now, and we walked to the McKay School, and that was about 2 miles. And I would faint all the time. It was so cold when we had to walk, and if it was real bad, Dad took us with the horses and sled and covered up with blankets and stuff. And of course we got into the school from the cold and into the warm, and I'd faint. So the kids used to put their coats down in a corner, and so that I would have a place to lay when I fainted. And one time they had the old water coolers, you know, like ceramic, and so I fainted and hit my head on that and cut my head open. And
How many kids were in your school?
Oh, there was
Very
about
many?
20, not too many, but all the grades, you know, the teacher had from 1 to 8th grade.
So even in the winter you walked?
We would walk, yeah, unless Dad would take us. It's the only way we had to get there.
And did you have boots?
And yeah, you had boots, the buckle boots, you know, put over your shoes. And there were 4 buckle boots, buckle overshoes.
And pants?
And no, never had pants, long brown stockings and a long coat. That's all we had. And until later years when they come out with the slacks, you know. And then in the summer, when we had to wear the brown stockings, or in the spring, then when I got to school, I'd roll them down because I didn't want nobody to see I had them on, you know.
So you were the only girl and all those boys?
Yeah. There would have been 2 more boys, but they died as infants. So there would have been 8 boys.
And what did Grandpa do for work?
Grandpa farmed, yeah.
Okay.
Mhm. So, and that was quite a thing to move in those days, you know, there wasn't big cattle trucks and everything like now, you know. You just had little trucks, or if it wasn't too far, you chased the cattle down to the road to the next place or whatever. You know, it was harder to move.
So
than
you rented a
just
house
cattle.
and the land?
Oh, yeah, you rented a farm, you know, like
Oh.
here, you had the house and everything.
Uh-huh.
And of course, I was the only girl, so then I had a chance to get the pick of the first room, my room in the house first. So the
Oh, when
boys
you-
would always say, you know, but Dad's always got first choice. So,
Was there a certain house you liked better than others?
no. The one where Harold and Sharon live now, we lived there when I started to go to high school. And that was quite new, so that was a nice house. And then there was one where we lived east of Rock Creek, out on 70. It was a nice brick house, and that was a nice, but we only lived there 6 weeks, because Dad rented the farms, and then the guy sold it, so we had to move in 6 weeks, all the farm stuff.
And then did you have to change schools every time you moved?
Well, the one with the brick house was at Rock Creek, so if we moved in that area, we got to go to Rock Creek. But see, there were so many country schools, you know, like the one south of Rock Creek, there was a Meadowbank school out there, and that wasn't far to go. And so we'd go there, and then there was a big lilac bush, and they made a hole underneath it, and then we'd play dolls and stuff at recess time in there. We'd bring our doll, if we had a doll, and play. We never had dolls. It was just, you know.
What was your favorite, do you remember your favorite toy?
No, I guess a
That you
doll.
got?
If
A
I
doll?
got a doll at Christmas each time. But then the one time I was about 6 years old, we lived south of Rock Creek, and I went out to the mailbox, and it was about as long a driveway as here, and I seen a big box hanging on the mailbox, and oh, so excited, and I took the box off, and I was running in with it, you know, and I dropped it, and it said, "Mama." It was a doll. I knew it was a doll then for me, otherwise it was from Aunt Jenny Cedarberg. And, you know, she never put a name on that it was mine, but then I knew, of course, because with all the boys, I knew it wasn't a doll for them.
And Aunt Jenny
That
was who?
upset. Aunt Jenny wasn't really our aunt. She was Mother's cousin. But she stayed with us all the time, so we called her Aunt Jenny because Mother never had a sister. Her sister died. And so we called her Aunt Jenny because they didn't have any children either. And we had all the kids and everything, and they come up all the time. So we just called her Aunt Jenny from little on.
And so Grandma's parents died young, or was it Grandpa's?
No, both of them. Dad's mother died when he was 5. My grandpa Dad's dad was a lumberjack. He cooked in the woods for the lumberjacks. And so then Dad would stay with Agnes, because they lived right near there. So then when Grandpa come from the woods, then he'd pick up Dad. So he raised him from 5 on. And Mother's dad was, let's see, she was about 20 when, they weren't married yet when he died. And her mother was she had problems, so she was in a hospital, a mental hospital at Anoka. And so none of us knew her at all because, you know, they were dead, all of them, before her dad and mother were married. So we never ever had a grandma and grandpa.
So when you celebrated holidays, who did you have to do that with?
Our own, or Martha and Milton. And Marlon, we'd be there. Grandma Dahlstrom was alive at that time. We'd, you know, go up there, and they used to give us a little box of hankies that cost about 15 cents. That was our gift. You know, it had little dogs or little kids on the hanky in the corner, you know. I'm so excited to get that. But it was about 15 cent, you know, gift.
And did Santa come, or?
Yeah, Santa always came. There was not much, you know, there from Santa, but we all got some kind of a toy. You know, the boys got a ball, or I can't remember what really they got. And I got a doll almost every year. Wasn't a very big one, little rubber doll or something. So,
And did you celebrate like we did, like we do now?
Christmas?
Just eating and
No.
opening
Yeah.
presents and?
Well, see, they wouldn't trim the tree until, the tree they'd put up the day before you trim it, you know, that day of Christmas Eve. And then, you know, because it was a real tree, and they had candles that they clipped on the tree, real little candles in these little holders, and they light them. Well, they could only light them for a few minutes because it burned the tree down. So I can't imagine that yet that nobody's tree, I mean, not that many trees burnt because with those candles on there.
So you just lit them for a little bit and then
Yeah.
that was it?
And they had this rope, it was mostly red rope we had around there, not too many bulbs on their tinsel. A lot of tinsel those days. It's the cheapest thing to buy.
So was there also an Easter bunny or a tooth fairy or?
No,
No? No.
no,
When did that come into play?
no, it maybe was, but, you know, so many of us, they couldn't. Tooth Fairy had too many times.
So speaking of tooth fairy, when you had a toothache, what did you do?
Put some cloves on it. You know, we didn't go to the dentist much. And Dad certainly didn't. He pulled his own teeth. If he'd have one that was rotted in the back, he'd take a nail and go under there with a nail and get the tooth out.
Oh,
Never got infection. Never got infection. Of course, he chewed, you know, so that kind of killed it, I think, instead of making it worse. Yeah.
so when was the first time you ever went to a dentist?
I don't know if I had a bad toothache or something, you know, they go and pull it or something, but, you know, didn't save too many.
Huh.
I had teeth that were missing in the back, you know, when I went and had when I got my plate later on in years. Oh,
Were your parents very strict?
no, Mother never said a word, ever. Dad, I can remember one time, we were out picking potatoes, we always planted potatoes for, you know, to sell and everything. And Martha's sister Carrie Dahlstrom was out there helping pick too and everything. And I don't know what I was gonna, like I was playing ball or whatever, and I threw the potato and I hit her in the foot. And oh, my dad got mad. The only time I think he ever hollered at me was, you know, to leave them potatoes in the ground or put them in the basket.
Oh, you didn't get a spanking her.
I didn't know, he never spanked, you know.
The boys? The boys ever get in
no.
trouble?
Oh, they got in trouble, lots. But he never, you know, he'd maybe holler and stuff, but I don't know. I mean, I can't remember that the boys ever got a spanking either. I think he was pretty lenient on them too.
So
And
who are
later
you more
years,
like in that? Are you more like your mom or your dad?
I think Mother.
Mother?
Well, they were both, so I guess a few genes from each one. You know.
Do you have a special memory about your mom or your dad?
Well, she was always easygoing and everything, and she'd always come over and help if I had something, you know, to do or whatever. She was always here to help. And she always said, you know, that if you got dishes to wash, I can always come and help you, she said. You know, cleaning cupboards or cleaning china. So I said, now I'm that way that when
Yes.
the kids come, or I go to your house, I can wash dishes anyway.
What about church? Did you,
Wherever we
Lutheran?
went, there was a Baptist church near when we lived where Chuck Heney Lane lived on that farm. So we walked to that church, we were Baptist, and we lived at Rock Creek, we were Methodist. We always went to Sunday school wherever we were. So we were a little bit of each one. Didn't matter as long as you went.
and you graduated from high school. Did the boys, did any of the boys?
Harold was in the 11th grade, and he went until Christmas, and he quit. So he didn't get his diploma, but he went that long. Harold went the longest. Yeah.
And you were able to go because you lived in town?
Yeah, I moved to town the last, let's see, last 2 years. And I stayed with Myrna Berglund, she stayed in town too, otherwise I wouldn't have been able to go. And I worked at Claire's Eat Shop, and that was Harold Anderson's mother. And she said I could stay at her house and clean house for her for staying. And then, so I would work at the restaurant from after school from 4 to 12. She was open till 12. And then I'd go home and then get up and go to school again and work again. And then clean house on weekends.
And did you go home
And
ever?
that- Oh, yeah, once in a while if we get a ride home. You know, Myrna didn't have a car either or anything to ride. So if we'd get a ride with somebody, why we'd go home. Or if Dad would come get us. But they had one car with 6 boys. So, you know, that's why I never ever learned to drive at home. I learned to drive on our honeymoon. We were driving out to Dakota, and big thing was to learn how to drive, how to steer and brake and everything. So Dad learned me then. He said, you can drive, because there was no traffic out in Dakota at that time. So I learned, and then when I got home, I got my license. We just had to go apply for it and got it.
Oh, you didn't have to take a test?
So, not too, I don't think too much. I can't remember of doing much, no.
Who were some of your close friends in
Well, Myrna.
high school, I guess?
Myrna was, and Mary Brose was in school, and, Carol, Holmberg, it was at that time, Marjorie Wanis, and there was a bunch of us. And, we would, you know, just come together in town or whatever, and there was a show hall, we'd go to the show. But, nothing much to do either, nobody could drive or nobody had a car.
The show,
So we
the
walked
old theater
right
in
there.
town?
Yeah, right where the jail is now,
Mm-hmm.
that was a theater.
Did you, have any pets like we do now, cats or dogs,
Oh,
or?
we had all kinds of dogs always, and the cats were all outside, there was none in the house. And, I can't remember all their names, every time we got a dog it was a different name, you know, so there wasn't any that I, remember.
Let's see. So when did you meet Dad then, in grade
Well,
school?
when we lived down here across from, where Steve Sommer lives now, we moved there, and I was in 8th grade then. And then when we moved where Harold is now, East of Rock Creek, I started high school down there. So, but when we lived where Steve Sommer does, we had to walk around the road, you know, walk to school too, and in the winter, and Dad would go ahead of us with his big boots and make tracks so we could step in those tracks. And then he'd carry a lantern, or once in a while he'd take us with the sled. But if we walked and it was nicer, then we walked across the field. Well, one time I had gotten a new coat, a nice pretty green coat that Selma Hansen had made for me, and crossing the fence, first time wearing it, and I got caught in the wire and tore a hole in the coat. Oh, it was just thick, but Selma fixed it and stuff. She made the coat out of another old coat.
So you went to like 8th grade at that school,
Up to 8th, yeah.
by Mary Ozen's,
Yep, yep.
and then you go to
Yeah,
town.
District 7, and then I went east of Rock Creek where we lived, and then I went, and the bus went on the Rock Creek Road, so I could get on the bus and go from there, but you had to walk, and it was no slacks at that time when I started, so it was just the long stockings and a long coat,
Oh,
and
so
boots.
you were in 2nd grade and Dad was in 8th grade, and that's when, so you were in school at one time together?
No, Dad was out of school
Oh.
before I was there, yeah, he was 6 years older than I was. So I started in 5th grade here, well, see, he had been out 3 years already. So he was, you know,
So he
older
was
when I
just
met
at
him
home
here,
working
but then
and-
we didn't start going, you know, to the show until I was 16. And then he
16 was the
gonna-
first time she went
And then
out, huh?
Franny and Jenny
Brittany?
kind of went with Dale and Kenny. So the one time my dad asked me to go to the show, and I didn't think Mother would let, so I said, well, Franny and Jenny are going with, so we're all going to the show. And when Dad come to get me, why, they weren't with. I don't know why what happened, they didn't go with that time. But I run out quick and got in the car, and so I could go to the show.
Okay, is there, so you went out with Dad one time when you were 16?
Yes, yes. And then, you know, we'd go to the show, there wasn't much to do otherwise either, go to the show and go to dances. And the wedding dances were always on a Monday night or Wednesday night, so you had to go during the week. I don't know why they had them, that was a bigger deal than anything. People were married on a Monday, we were then too later. But anyway, so we went out and I got a diamond then when I was 17. And Dad went in the service then for 2 years. But anyway, before, when I got done graduating, then Mary Bruce and I went out to Chicago because Agnes Olson was there with her 3 daughters living, and they said if I came out there, you know, to visit for 2 weeks, come on the train. So Mary went with me and went out there visiting, and then the girls said, well, you know, if we found you a job, would you come back and you could stay with us? So I said, well, I guess. I didn't have a job back here. So then I went, they found me a job, and Mary and I came home, and then I heard from them they had a job for me, so then I went back by train out there all alone and stayed there then. And then I decided that Dad was overseas. He was doing guard. The war was over then, but he was guarding over in Germany. And I went, decided that I was too young to be engaged. I wanted, because I hadn't gone with anybody much except Dad. And so then I wrote to him and said that I was going to give his ring back. So then he...
Had you met someone there, or?
No, just that there was a guy there, and, you know, nice, and we went out for supper and stuff in Chicago, and but not that it wasn't, you know, anything to it or anything, but just I felt better going with him without the ring on. You know, if I would have had the ring, kept the ring, then I would never have gone out with anybody because I was engaged. But if I told Dad that I was giving the ring back, then I'd go out with somebody to see really if he was the one or not. So, you know, we had a good time at that time. Well, then at Thanksgiving that year,
Well, now
'cause I
you,
went
so you
out
wrote him a
in
letter.
September, I wrote and told him that I was giving the ring back. Well, he said, don't send it back to me or anything. He said, just keep it. And so he sent telegrams. Oh my God, telegram color asked me to come back or anything. And I said no. So then at Thanksgiving time, then he asked if he could stop. I was out there, you know, through that time. And he asked if he could stop and see me. And so I said, yeah, you can stop. So that night when he was gonna arrive on the train, come in, then all the girls, of course, left the house and left me there. Well, Agnes didn't want to go. She didn't want to leave me there with him in case. So she didn't. She only went next door. And so then, you know, we warmed up stuff from Thanksgiving, and he ate and stuff. And so we visited. Well, then I told him that, I said, he's asked if I'd come back to him, and I said, well, I'll give you an answer at Christmas. I'm coming home at Christmas time. So then he left and went home, and I came home at Christmas, and I had decided that, you know, I would go back to him. So then he had thought, well, if she comes back to me, I'm going to give her a fur coat for Christmas. So he took Donald Gross, who was about my size at that time. Now he weighed about 300, but at that time he was little. So he took him with up to the fur store at Sandstone, Klein's department store. And he took Donald up there with him, and Donald tried on this coat, and it fit him, so he thought, well, it fit me. So then he come down.
How much?
How much was the coat? God, I think $90. I think I've got the slip. We found it in Dad's receipts from the bank. We found that the coat, you had written the check, you know, for that coat. So anyway, I come back at Christmas then, so then I went back out there again and stayed. Well, then we decided to get married in June. So I stayed out there until March. I come home then.
What type of work did you do out there?
File clerk. in the office of their friends, Decamp Company it was called. And so they had some other relatives that
So
lived
you
out
weren't
there.
a waitress and he didn't
No.
give you the diamond under
No,
his
but
plate?
no.
Where'd that story come from?
Don't know. No, I waitressed those years going to school, you know, but not when I got out there, you know. So then I come back and, were you gonna ask something, Sherry?
You waitressed when you were back in Pine City before you went back to, or went out to Chicago.
Oh, yeah, yeah, through high school, I waitressed,
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
The last, 2 years for sure, I waitressed there at Clara's. And then, Therians took over, and I waitressed for them just a little while, and, before I graduated that. And so then, I come back, and then we decided to, of course, those days you didn't rent a hall for the wedding, for the reception or anything, you had it at home. So we were gonna have about 100 people, and so my goodness, we cleaned and furnished and cleaned the house up and everything, and that day, or the day before, they took all the furniture out of the house and set up tables. And then we were gonna have a chicken dinner for about 100 people. So all the neighbors, because we only had a little gas stove at that time, you know, on a wood stove, and no electricity. So they, each one of the neighbors took and roasted a big roasted chicken and kept it in their oven at home. And then when they served that day, then they brought the roasters the chicken over when they were ready. And,
But you had a church wedding.
yeah, it's a church wedding, Catholic
But it was
church.
all the neighbors.
But all the neighbors, you know, helped with the reception.
Mm-hmm.
And it was out there, and we got married at 9 in the morning. And so then, you know, you come to the house, and Grandma Dahlstrom had made rosettes and donuts, and so, you know, for everybody at the farm when they come out. And then they had the chicken dinner at noon, and more leftovers in the afternoon. And drinks we had a cellarway that you walked from outside and open, where you open the big door. It was 2 double doors, and then you walked down the basement. It was a nice basement for a, older house, and they had the beer and stuff down there. So, of course, then after the dance, and there was a dance at the topic, and after the dance, they wanted to come back and have some more beer and eat what was left over, so they hung lanterns down the basement so they could see to find the beer cakes. So it was, a fun wedding and full time. And then we were going to Dakota out to see a buddy of Dad's, and so we went out to Dakota, and we got there, and he lived on a ranch, he told Dad. So we got out to the ranch, and it was a little like a train car that he lived in. Just an old shack, and he had acreage. He lived on a ranch, he told Dad, and that was a ranch. But his house was that little, and he wasn't home when we got there. So we asked some neighbors, and no, they said they didn't know where he was. So we didn't wait then. Then instead of staying there and going further into Dakota, we went up north and went down through Canada and come back home. So in the meantime, we were gonna live here. And, an old bachelor had lived here, and when I come to look where I was gonna live, I almost died. You almost had to put a mask on to get in the house. This old bachelor had, when they fried bacon all the time and stuff, they put the bacon grease in a coffee can on the back of the stove. And of course, he had that set there every time when he'd fry bacon, put more grease in it, and it got so rancid and smelled so horrible. And then in the bedroom here, which is my bedroom now, it was a big bay window in there. It was a living room, I guess, years ago, really. And a big bay window in there, and he was building a boat in there. He could get through that window in and out, and then he had sacks of feed, just like he was saving feed. Instead of carrying it to the granary, he would just buy feed and put it in the house. So then they cleaned him out before I went, but then Aunt Mary Alex and Grandma and Franny and Jenny come over and papered the living room and the bedroom, what was going to be my bedroom. So that was nice, clean wallpaper on those rooms before I come back. but it was just wood floors in the kitchen, and you can't afford much, so we couldn't afford a rug to fit that whole big kitchen. So we just bought, you know, a rug maybe 9 by 12 and that was the middle of it, no cupboards or nothing in there, so it was a huge room, because it's 17 by 19. And so we bought a little tin cupboard with 2 doors, and we had an old cupboard that had a rolled up thing, you know, like a rolled desk, and that you put things in there, and then you opened a door, and there was a flour sifter in there, and so that was a nice cupboard, which would have been worth a lot of money now. And I sold it after we got these cupboards in, to Early Nolson's for $25, I think, and now it would be worth a couple hundred. But anyway, you know, that's what we used then, and that we just had table and chairs and not much furniture or anything.
What did you do for icebox or
I
ice
had
cube?
my icebox that 2 kids fixed for me now. That was our ice. And you bought a block of ice, a big square of ice, and put in there, and then you had a pan underneath, and with the drain, that ice, when it melted, drained down in that pan. Well, a lot of times you forgot to empty the pan and it'd run all over the floor, but that was your icebox, and we'd put our butter and cream on there. But years ago, going back to that, my folks, you know, had icebox too, but we would take a pail down in the well with a rope on and put your butter and cheese, and not cheese so much, butter and if we had cream in there, and lower it down, and then you'd pull on that rope and pull it up and get it out of there. That kept it cool down in the well. So, but, yeah, so it was not any of the things we got.
So did you
going
buy
on.
this farm, or
We
you
didn't
rented
buy
it?
right away. Grandma and Grandpa had bought it, and then we rented it. And
How
for
much?
2-3 years, we paid $5,200 for it. About. let's
In
see,
what year?
Let's see, we were married in 47, maybe 55 or so, we bought it. So then when I sold land, I got almost as much for 1 acre as we had paid for the whole farm. And that was hard to deal with, getting that money, you know. I could hardly even count it, because, you know,
It was so much.
yeah, it was so much at that time, and Dad wasn't here, you
Yeah.
know, that he could enjoy it. So, but each time I sold, it got a little easier.
Yeah. And you sold it all by yourself.
And I sold it myself, yeah. So, I guess that,
So how
I
many
mean,
years after you got married, then was it before Kathy was born?
4 years after, and then Kathy was born. I had to learn how to drive tractor. I had no time to have babies at first. I learned how to drive tractor, milk cows by hand. I never learned to think at home because all the boys, I was busy helping Mother, you know, wash the jeans on a washboard. And later years, then the last, before I left, she had a gas engine on a washing machine, you know, that we used, but otherwise it was a scoreboard. And so I didn't have time. I didn't even see a calf born until I got married and seen one. Dad didn't allow me down, the only girl. So, yeah, so it
How many
I
cows
learned.
did you
We had
have?
6 cows, 6 cows. And one time, our milk check was like $6 for 2 weeks. But we took the butter and cheese out of there, and I had chickens, so we had chickens for eggs. We'd go to Greeley and sell the eggs, and then that was my grocery money.
And how far was Greeley?
Greeley was, it's about 1.5 miles. And the kids, when the kids got later, then they rode bike over there. I'm all excited to go on, because he'd always throw in some candy when I'd buy groceries. He'd always throw in a bag of candy. And now, my God, they wouldn't even give you a penny sucker. But that was those days they were glad to get, you know, that money, because nobody had anything. So it was hard times, but
And so
you made
Dad,
it. You made it through it.
Dad farmed
Yeah.
with Uncle Art.
Dad farmed with, yeah, him and Art farmed together, and so they, you know, always got along. And then Dad worked in the sawmill, and so he, later years, you know, made a little money, but it wasn't that much.
And that was for Grandpa.
For Grandpa, Pangerl, yeah, he lived right across the road. And so that was
So-
good.
And this farm though was really where
It
Grandma
was.
Pangerl grew up.
It was, yeah, it was Bernard's grandpa's farm, the Sommer farm. Because his grandpa had been married, and his grandma had been married, and they each had 7 children, and they married, and then they had 7 more, so there was 21 children here at one time that lived here.
And when they were
So-
all gone, then Grandma and Grandpa Pangerl bought this?
Yeah.
But they didn't live here?
No, they didn't, no, they lived where they were, and they rented it to Louis Pangerl, a neighbor over here. He farmed, and when we came, how was it, we came back from our honeymoon, and we come back here, and, we didn't want Grandma to know we were here when we come back, so we parked the car here so they wouldn't see. And so here in the morning, they come and knock on the door, and here it was Louis. Oh, I had to just check and see who was here. He come in checking.
How'd you ever-
Because he farmed and he had the cattle out, outside. He didn't milk here at that time, but.
But you came back and your bed was gone that one
Oh,
time.
yeah, well, we came here and we moved things in here, but we didn't put up the bed or anything, we just put, the mattress was here and the bedding was here, moved in in boxes. So, before we went on our honeymoon, on the night of our wedding, Dad was supposed to make an appointment to have our, at Rust City at the hotel, Grand Hotel. And so we got down there the night after the wedding dance and asked for the room, and they said, no, there was no room. And here he had made it for the night before.
Oh.
So there was no room then because there wasn't motels like now. It was just hotels in these little towns. So we drove to Harris and whatever and Pine City and no room anywhere. So then we come back here, we knew we had the mattress on the floor and the bedding, so we made up our bed then here. So then every time we had an anniversary after that, they'd take our bed apart and, well, sometime they would leave it in the bedroom apart, but one time they hauled it over to Grandma's, so we'd have no bed. So they always remember that was the time that they took the bed apart. So, yeah, it was,
So beginning
Lots of
married
things.
married life, did you ever wish you
Oh.
would have stayed in Chicago?
well,
Or you
no,
were used to-
I guess I never did, I farmed and, had to learn all these things, which was hard because, for a girl to learn after, but I was glad I learned how to drive tractor and milk the cows. Well, then later years, of course, Dad would go hunting, or he bought a baler later on, and he'd go baling or haying or whatever, and Mother always had to milk the cows. So isn't it funny that all that work was to do just at milking time? So we'd get out of milking. I always told him that. I said, you just do it so that you don't have to milk the cows.
And what'd you do with the kids when you were?
Well, the 4 years, there was no kids.
Oh.
So after that, we had a hay mow, it was empty in between, the cow barn and the hay barn. There was a driveway. So I put the kids in a buggy or in a big box or whatever, Kathy, for a few years, and then I'd milk and they'd be out there, because you couldn't come running in the house all the time, and in the summer and the winter, of course, you had to. And then when Dad was there, then I had to run in and see, and so I was always, never got away from milking cows.
And your kids are how far apart?
Well, the kids are, Kathy was born 4 years later, and then 4 years after that, Janie was born. And then 2 years, then Debbie, and then a year and a half, Jeff, and then 6 for Sherry.
Or reverse,
So-
Jeff and then Debbie.
Oh, yeah, Jeff and then Debbie, yeah.
Did you ever think
So-
you'd have 5 kids?
I guess I never thought how many I'd have, but it was nice at that time when they finally grew up. And now when they're grown and families, and it's nice to have all the children. They all help out and we have a good time.
Were they good?
Yes, I think most of the time they were good. One time I don't know what I got mad at Jeff for, and I run around the house with a wooden spoon after him, and pretty soon we were laughing so hard that he run after me.
Do you ever remember any time that one was really in
The
trouble?
kids. Well, Janie was in trouble one time. We were gone for the weekend and she was gonna have a party. And only a couple girls, she was gonna have. So we didn't worry about that, and come home and oh my God, she was feeling so bad. So many kids showed up. And a day or so later, we found out that somebody had drank Dad's whiskey and put water in the bottles and somebody got sick on the floor upstairs but she learned.
Did I ever?
Uh,
And do you think Dad was more strict than you?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
I do too.
Yeah.
Not too bad.
Yeah. Well, I don't think he ever,
No, he just
he hollered a lot.
he hollered,
He
yeah,
hollered a
yeah.
lot, yeah.
And do you have any special memories of holidays or one you liked better?
I've
or-
always tried to make the holidays, special. Adding little things or,
Christmas.
memories. Yeah, Christmas mostly. Memories, yeah. Buying things or giving just little things. And I'd done garage sale bags for years and gave them each. And that was a special time because I would buy what I thought they liked or they saved or they collected. And I'd wash it all up and put it upstairs. And then I'd take it out at Christmas time. And I had all these big bags. And I would lay it all on the bed. And then I'd know, well, this is for Janie and this is for Sherry and whatever, and then I'd wrap them all in tissue and put them in those big bags. So they were all bought with special intentions. I had fun doing it, shopping all year, but it was a lot of work at Christmas time to get the bags filled. Then finally I quit now because everybody is, the kids are a little bit too old for garage sale things. They can buy their own things now.
What were the old Christmases like? Who did you celebrate with?
Here
Like
after
when we were kids?
Well, always Grandma and Grandpa and great grandma was alive. We'd go up there usually on Christmas Day afternoon, and then we'd celebrate with my family, with the Olsons, and we'd have it later years at the Rock Creek Town Hall because Mother and Dad's house was too small. So we'd have it at the Rock Creek Town Hall. And then the kids were younger and they wanted to have a play, so they would, Susie Olson and Tammy and them were older and Kathy, and they'd, make up a play and then they'd dress up, and so that was fun. But the families got bigger and then it was harder to everybody to be together, so then we had our own families.
Do you have any advice that you would give to people for staying together so long and working through hardships? And
Years ago, if you had an argument, you couldn't run home to Mother. I couldn't run home to Mother with 5 kids. I had no car, I had no money, and I didn't want Mother to know we were having trouble. So you just stayed, you worked it out. I didn't talk. I was one that I never talked back, and so I never talked, and a day or so, and we're back to, back to talking again, and you kind of forgot about it.
And what are some of the memories in your
Are you going?
that stick in your mind, favorite times that you had, places you've been?
Well, we always had good times, and you had plenty to eat, and there wasn't much money for Christmas presents, but you'd have to have 2 gifts you wanted 2 gifts for each of the children to put under the tree, and then when Santa came, you'd want a couple of gifts for him to bring in for each one. Well, it was pretty hard when you didn't have much money to see that you got that many presents, and they all had to be equal, and so you made it. But I sold cards at that time, and I sold Avon, and that money I saved to buy Christmas presents.
And
So-
Tupperware.
And Tupperware, I guess I sold, yeah. So whatever there was to sell, I did, because anything to make a little extra money. So,
What did Dad think about that?
what did Dad think about it? Well, that was all up to me, you know. He didn't worry, because he didn't have to pay the money out then, so as long as I had the money, why, I shot and bought. And we used to go twice a year. Franny went with us, and, Charlene and Lois, and, would go to St. Cloud twice a year. And we'd have $20 to spend. And we'd go in the morning, and you could go to Herberger's and find little corduroy, half corduroy pants for 50 cents. Pajamas were $1, t-shirts were 50 cents. And we'd go in the morning, we'd stop at Day Old Bread place, because you kids like little rolls, and they had those little boxes of donuts. We'd each spend $2 to buy bread and that stuff, because we knew that would take home, that would be food. So then we went and shopped, and then we ate at what's called a Modern Bar and Grill, and we had lunch out there, had a drink, and that was maybe 50 cents too, I can't remember on that. And then we'd shop more, so we didn't have anything, any money left when we'd come home, because we'd spend it all. Because,
So
you know,
$20 and
for
you did all that?
$20 and bought all those things. So one time we were coming back and came through, was it Brunswick? And on that old grocery store, there was a sign, and it said peaches, 98 cents. And we thought, oh my God, you know, have we got enough? We can buy a couple crates of peaches or whatever and divide them. And we said, yeah, we got room, because, you know, all that stuff in the car. And so we went inside, and here the sign had fell down, and it was $1.98. So then we couldn't buy any, because wouldn't have had enough money to buy peaches. But 98 cents we could have bought a crate. So, but it was fun. We laughed more about that than anything.
Did you sew clothes for us kids?
Yeah, I sewed. Used to sew a lot of things. When I was in high school, and I made myself an outfit then, because I had taken home ec, and I made myself a white pleated skirt, because you could fold the pleats, you know, around me, and it was easy to sew waistband and everything. And then I made a red checkered blouse, and I had my picture taken. I was a junior in high school then, and the blouse, I did, you know how you're supposed to sew and then clip the corner? And on that picture, I can see I didn't clip the corner, because it was a little thread there across that I should have cut. So I had my picture taken with that, because it was a new outfit. So then after I was married, I did sew, you know, little pants, elastic, and that kind of thing. And so, not a lot, because you didn't have much time, you know.
And you had a wringer washer.
Yeah, and I had it in the old porch. This was an old porch, just a little part of a one. And I had the machine out in the porch, you know. So I had to bring it in to the kitchen, warm it up the night before, so it would start. And it was electric, you know, but to be sure the motor would run. So then, and then you hung all the clothes outside, and I think that's why you get rheumatism in your hands, because you had to hang out and they froze and everything, you know, hang them on the line.
Winter
But when
too?
you were kids, in the winter too, you had no dryer. So then I had a clothes bar, and we had a wood furnace, and it had a big grate in the living room, a huge grate. So you kids would come down from upstairs then and come down and dress over that big grate, because that was the heat, you know. It was a register upstairs, but not too much went up there. So, but I would take I had a big clothes bars, and I would hang, like when you kids were little, diapers on there, because then they would freeze outside, and you bring them in and they smelled good. And then I'd put that bar over the big register, and they dry in just a short time. So I had a couple bars, I think, at that time that I hung the little things on, because you wouldn't want to hang little socks and little t-shirts out on the line, because you had to go out and get them and take them off then. So it,
And you had no indoor plumbing, I know, until...
no indoor plumbing, no, not until just before, we had a stool down the basement that Dad had put in, and the later years. But we had, just before Sherry was born, then I had worked, when I worked out and stuff, then I'd save money, and we put the bathroom in. And then,
Where'd you work?
No, I didn't work then. No, Dad put the bathroom in. And then, when you were going to kindergarten, that's when I went to work then. And, because I knew Kathy would take care of I worked at the Red Shed when they first opened them. Kathy would take care of supper. I had supper ready because I didn't have to go to work till 5. And Dad was out doing chores then. And so then, you know, I knew the kids would be fed and gone to bed because somebody was here. Everybody was here. And and I worked ever since. I worked that first year at the Red Shed, and I was making $1.35 an hour. And after the first year, I asked if if they gave a raise. No, we don't give raises. And so Dolores Gay had seen that, I was a waitress, and she said, come down to work for me. She said, I'll give you a dime more, and she said, you get profit sharing. And I figured, well, I only had a mile to go to work. So I did, I went there, and I worked 10 years then for her. And then they closed because the bosses were getting a divorce, and they live in Wisconsin, and his wife was gonna run this one, but she didn't want to do taxes for Minnesota and Wisconsin and everything, so they just let the restaurant go, close the door. So then Janet Peters told me there was a gal that was expecting a baby it was Monagold's who had Nichols Cafe at that time. And so she was expecting a baby, so she said, I bet if you go there, you get a chance to get a job. So I went there and I got the job right away. And
How many
Karen.
years in between Wayne's and Monagold's?
From April to November. And I was so glad. I thought even
And
if I
Kathy
would-
got married.
Kathy got married in July. Well, Mother died in May and Kathy got married in July. Yeah. So that same year. But it worked out, not worked out, the mother died, but, that I wasn't working at that time when she was sick and everything. Of course, she wasn't sick long. She had a heart attack. And then at her apartment, she was in town then at that time where Charlene has the hillside. And they took her down to the hospital in Rose City. And then she was getting along pretty good, And so she wanted to come. I said, you can come here, Mother, and stay with me. I said, you can have the bedroom, and my bathroom is right there. But I said, I can't take care of you if you can't walk. And she couldn't walk that good. So Dr. Halpin told her that she could, you have to stay in the hospital until you're strong enough to walk, and then you can go to LaDez. And she was so upset of that she had a massive heart attack that night about 6 o'clock and died before I got there. And we just are that close here that she died because she was all nervous about staying in the hospital and having to go to the nursing home, he had said. And she didn't want to do that.
And how long before had Grandpa died?
Grandpa 2 years before.
And he died of pneumonia?
Well, he had emphysema, he smoked so much and everything. And they had said that he had cancer. And we never told him or anything what we had heard because thinking, keep it so hard to try and keep it from somebody, when you aren't supposed to tell anything and try and talk and not say, And so, but he died very suddenly too. And he didn't have to go to the nursing home, and he didn't want to go either. So it was a blessing,
So how many years altogether you were married to Dad before he died?
Well, we celebrated 50 in June, and Dad died in January. So he started to go downhill right after the party. So it was 9 months that he knew that, wasn't going to make it. That he had a valve that was closing and they couldn't do more surgery because he had 3 open heart surgeries. So, but he was able to die at home peacefully, so that was a blessing. That he didn't have to go in the hospital or anything again.
And is there anything you'd like to say special about your life and how you lived it? Any legacy you'd hope that you could pass on?
I just, you can't worry about tomorrow. You have to just, worry about today because tomorrow might not come. And after having heart surgery, I was thankful that I made it through that and that I'm here from day to day, And you can't dwell on, I'm gonna be sick tomorrow or anything. You have to just, if it comes, it comes. And now there's so many things they can do for you, so no matter what happens or, that you, hopefully there's a cure unless you get too old that there's nothing to do. But I'm thankful I'm here this long.
But so many people say you're such a wonderful person, you are so sweet and loving, and you've met so many people through your life and through your waitressing work, and they remember you. What do you think, why do you think that is so? What have you done in your personality?
I love people, and I miss all the people I've worked with, and I just, I'm a people person. I have to, be around people, and that's why I'm on the go so much in the car.
And you were at Nichols how long?
Yeah, I was at Nichols for 29 years, so they're all part of family. I was there for breakfast this morning with Jeff and Kathy Schlegel, and Mary was there, and Lois stopped, and then Butch is leaving for Texas today now, so I give him a hug and give Joyce, he's taking his mom down there. They gave her a hug. They've been very good to me. Even if they never paid me much, I was glad to be there and, be able to have a job and work. And they never paid much, but I made good tips for what I thought for Pine City. Where would you go? Maybe some days you'd make $10, maybe some days you'd make $30, $40. And so where could you go to make, that much money in Pine City? I wouldn't wanted to drive to the city, so I was just glad of whatever I got. So, and they were all good to me, and all the workers and everything I worked with, we all had a good time working. So I didn't ever wish I had a different job. I waited that long and was just glad.
And you're still here on the farm,
Still here on the farm, yeah.
sold your
I don't
land.
know, there again, day to day, but as long as I can drive and here, and the kids are here to help me do whatever. And, this morning, I have so many kitties here, 10 kitties. So this morning I was going out to start the car and let it run, so I went over to feed the kitties, and I was going around the corner, one kitty went under my feet, and I went down on my knees, and I fell with my head. I was just this far from hitting my mouth or head on an ice chunk. And that cat, I couldn't kick it because then I'd fall on the ice more. So she got away and she looked at me like, what are you almost falling for? I shouldn't have fed him, but I did.
Too many cats.
So, well, they are around all the time, too many. On the farm, yeah, it's nice, but they're always underfoot. So, anyway, they're all still alive.
And we know you love to travel, so you've had many, many trips. Since I remember, I think you went to New York, one of my first memories,
Yeah,
on Thanksgiving.
was gone for Thanksgiving.
We had no Thanksgiving dinner.
Sherry won't let you forget that.
But is there any,
Yeah.
out of all the trips, anyone that really sticks in your mind that you will say, I
Well,
am
I
so glad I
think
went?
On the cruise, when so many of you went with and stuff, that was fun, that was a great time. And it was right after Dad died, but, it was, it took your mind off and brought back happier memories, happier times. And he wouldn't have ever wanted to go on a trip like that. He had all his hunting and fishing trips, and I never ever told him he couldn't go. So I have those memories too.
But you went to Vancouver that one time for Sylvia and Clarence's
Oh, yes, we did, yeah,
Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
didn't, Dad wasn't gonna go then either, but I said, I've got the money, I bought your ticket, you're going. The only time I told him actually anything that he had to do. So we went out there and he had a good time. We flew out there to Vancouver and then we had to drive down to Portland where Sylvan Clarence had their party. And so we spent the time there and stuff. Clarence was gonna take him out on the boat, on the fishing boat, you know, with salmon. But of course, after their party and they had company and there was no time to go out. But they still visited and had a good time. So he did, you know, go with me there. But otherwise, mostly hunting and fishing. And he flew into Canada many times till it got too
In Colorado, we went to Colorado.
Yeah, out to see Debbie.
Mhm.
And that was fun. We rode horse out there. I even got up in the horse. But when I was little, I never got on a horse after that. When we lived where Steve and Laura live now, they had, I wanted to go down, Matt Youngborough's lived where Ernie lives now, and I was gonna ride horse down there. So I got on this big white horse and rode down there, and when I got there, I was gonna jump off the horse and, you know, visit with Charlene and stuff. And I fell, they had a coffee can sitting there and open. The tops used to be open and sharp years ago, cause you opened it with a can opener around the cover, and the edge was sharp. And so I fell, and I cut my finger almost off by falling down in there. And I thought, oh, that's the end of riding horse. I couldn't ride the horse home because my hand was bleeding. They had to take me in and stitch it up. And then it got proud flesh underneath that it stayed funny. So that's why I never rode horse much after.
That was a big white horse that you have the
was a big
picture
one.
of with
Yeah.
all the boys.
Yeah. So,
Are you glad you had a lot of brothers?
yeah, they were always good to me during the time. I can't remember ever fighting much with them or anything. And they're good to me now. We still visit and go for dinner and whatever. And so, you know, it's not hard to have 6 brothers like that. They were easygoing and they're still easygoing, all of them. They must have taken after Mother too. Or Dad. Yeah.
And is there anything you would like to have the grandchildren remember you as? Anything, advice you can give them, or?
Well, I hope they all remember that I loved them. Love them. And I don't see them too much now, and they're so busy going to school and everything. But I hope they remember that they had a good grandma who liked to do things with them. And when they were little, I'd take them to garage sales and out for lunch once in a while. And I couldn't afford too much years ago, but the latter years, why, you know, I hope they had as good a life, even if I didn't have much, but as good a life as I did, you know, growing up.
And to us kids?
Well, you know that you were all loved, and I hope you you realize that, you know, I couldn't do a lot for you, but I did what I could during, you know, the times of growing up. And just that you raise your family with the love I gave you, and I'm sure you will. And that
What
you all
golden
meant a
rule
lot
do
to you?
What golden rule do you follow, or makes you so special to people? Why do people see such a loving person in you? What do you?
I don't know, I didn't know that.
Oh heavens, we do, and many of your friends do.
Oh,
And I don't think you've ever said anything negative about anyone. You
well,
always see
I
the
like-
good in people
We have,
and never judge,
I have,
it seems.
you know, some good
You
friends
never
and
judge.
everything, and,
And you're always doing for others before yourself.
well, I like to do for others.
You
like
do,
to-
so you feel that
Help.
that has given you
Yeah, you know.
gratification
Rather
in life
than, you know, I like to make dinner for people and take over. I can't afford a lot, but I'd rather do that than donating to certain things. I'd rather do for the friends I have, you know, like if they're sick or something, take some
So
food
your
or
friends
do
are
something.
very important to
Very
you.
important, right, right. And, you know, you hope that they know that they're special, that's why I'm doing it. You know, that you have good friends. Well, here's somebody, Jack. So, it works on both ways. They're good to me, good friends, and I enjoy them as friends, and we have a good time. You know, Charlene and Lois are relatives, but we've gotten along all these years and still do. And Mary is come into the picture since her husband died. I never seen much of her after because she never had any children. Where I had you children, and on the farm, you know, we never done things together. And now that she is widowed, then we do things together, and you know, works out fine. So.
Okay, well, unless
So
you
I
can think of
that's
anything.
My life.
And
Not
your
a very
birthday's
exciting
coming up?
one.
It's a good life. Mother.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you're a
It's
wonderful person.
very- oh,
Well-
you are a tremendous
Oh,
person.
thank you. Did you miss the dog?